Yes, oh yes, it's that time of year, folks. We've all been waiting for them, and they're finally here. Every fan is up in arms to track these sets down to the point where we'd literally tear our own face off just to get our hands on them. It is indeed the brand new B&M Exclusive sets, but the question is, have they outdone themselves again? Let's find out by taking a look at the Keys of Marinus set. Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at a set that I never thought would become a reality. A set of figures that if you told me we were getting a few years back, I would probably laughed in your face, considering the nature of the toy industry. I am thrilled to be reviewing this new set, which is in fact the B&M exclusive Keys of Marinus set, featuring the first ever Hartnell era monsters, which are not Daleks or Cybermen. Nope. I am talking about the Voord. As well as that, we get our very first 60s companion, which was nothing but fiction if you asked me a few months ago, but it is in fact Ian Chesterton. The fact we've practically come full circle with these sets is amazing. I always doubted myself thinking they can't out-top the range from what they did last year, and they've proved me wrong 100%. The fact that we finally have some 60s monsters as well as a 60s companion is amazing, and you can probably tell by the sound of my voice that I am more ecstatic right now due to something we've been pleading for over a decade. And at long last, we finally have them. So, as ever, when I do these reviews, let's start by taking a look at the packaging. So, as ever with the packaging, it's been featured in this blue and white style guide with the new logo on the side as well as the TARDIS, the limited edition foil sticker on the front, and along with the name of the set. And if you move on to the back, not only do we have promotional images of the figures themselves, we also get a synopsis about the story itself. Just something that I thought would be a good idea, and the fact that it probably helps out fans who've never seen the story before, so it may give them an idea what the story is about. Another fact we now have is that when you open the box, we finally get some interesting backdrops for the figures to stand in. As in the past, you just had that white generic background, which didn't resemble anything, and it was a shame because you would get them in the TARDIS sets and the Dalek figures, but never with these free packs, so I am pleased that they have finally done this. As you can see, the backdrop is meant to resemble one of the places that they visit in the story, and it just looks remarkable. As if you decide to keep it, you can display it with your figures. So, taking the figures out of the box, we have the three figures, and the first one I want to look at is, of course, Ian Charlton. Oh wait, no, sorry, Chesterton. As you can see, this is probably one of the best head sculpts that we've had up to this date. And when you turn it in certain angles, you can see that the likeness is there. I love the way that the hair is sculpted, and I must admit, I think the quiff is maybe a little too high, as I've seen people complain about it, and I get what they mean, as it does look like he's trying to style his hair like Elvis Presley, but apart from that, the head sculpt is superb. The paint on the hair is painted in a black colour and has a grey wash over the top, which makes all the details stand out, which I think looks amazing. But on closer inspection on the photos from what I've seen, I do believe his hair is in fact a very dark brown. But considering there's not a lot of colour photos out there of his tenure from the show, and the very little ones that we have are to be interpreted, but what I've seen from fan work such as colourizations and artwork, most of the time his hair is represented as brown. But again, it's only a minor nitpick, and I don't want to seem ungrateful. Considering we got this at all is a godsend. The paint apps around the eyes and lips also look very neat and tidy, and it's just brilliant. I mean, what else can I say? He does look like what an Ian toy would look like in the flesh, and I absolutely adore this figure. Next up, we have the body, and this body in particular is in fact the John Sim Master from Series 3, but as reusage goes, I must admit it does work rather well here. The suit jacket has been cast in a grey colour and the buttons have been painted black. The shirt itself is painted in white, and when we get to the tie, it doesn't actually represent anything that he wore through his tenure. But if you watched An Adventure in Space and Time, it is actually the tie that was used in the production, and the actor who played Ian was none other than Jamie Glover, the son of Julian Glover, who was in Doctor Who, as well as Indiana Jones, and Star Wars. Well, that was a fun fact about a tie, but I do digress. The colours on the tie are simply superb, and even though it's a simple design, it definitely works here. It looks like something Ian would have definitely worn, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Taking a look at the hands, they do seem to be new. I can't really recall if they were used on any other figures, but if you look at his hands, they seem to have little rings painted on each hand. Again, I don't really recall him ever wearing any rings, but he also has one on his wedding finger. It could be an indication that he went off and married Barbara, but who knows. And then moving down to the trousers, they have been painted in a lighter grey to the jacket, and you have all these little creases to make it look more authentic, and the shoes have been painted black. That's really all I can really say on this figure, other than he looks fantastic. It's a figure that I thought would never happen, and I'm astonished that we have one now. Hopefully when the time comes, we will eventually get a Barbara and Susan, as it would make sense that they will be the next companions on the list of characters to be released. Up next, we have the two Voord figures, which are honestly amazing. Not only are they really great figures, but in fact, this is the second ever monster to appear in the show, and they have certainly been a thing that people had high on their wish list of figures. I am honestly so pleased that we finally got two variants as toys, as they just look great. Even though sculpt-wise and paint-wise they are mostly identical, but to the untrained eye, there are some subtle differences to differentiate the two figures. As well as new head sculpt, you can tell that there's a lot of new tooling on the bodies of these two new Voord in terms of the feet, hands, and the belts. The body itself is in fact the Jack figure that was released about a decade ago, but this body itself has been reused several times since it's just a generic male body. It does work rather well, and it makes sense to reuse if the monster is wearing a leotard or a wetsuit, really, and it is just a body to use. And they have done a brilliant job on using this body and adapting a few little things to replicate what the Voord wore in the story. So as I was saying, the difference between the head sculpts is that one has a triangular antenna, or whatever it is, and the other is circular. As I watched the Keys of Marinus quite recently, I know that the circular one was the one that attacked Susan in that first episode, and the triangular one is the one that went after the Doctor and fell into the Sea of Acid. So taking a look at one of the Voords, the head sculpt is astonishing. It really does look like the helmet that was worn in the story, or whatever it was, and even though it is just a solid black piece, the detail on it is really, really nice. You have the fins at the back of the head, the protruding ears, or whatever those are, on the sides of the head, and I really love the fact that they've added ear holes, which was seen on the actual costumes, so that the actors could hear what was going on around them. As well as that, you also have a slightly glossy black on the eyes to separate that from the rest of the head. And the other little details on this head is the collar that goes around the neck, and again, it's sculpted really well. The antenna itself is just made out of PVC rubber. It's firm, but you can bend it if you decide to move it about, but I don't recommend it as it could ruin the sculpt. But on the other hand, it won't snap off. And then moving down to the body, it's just matte black, but it does consist of this new belt piece. Again, it's made out of PVC, and you can see this little square piece attached to the front of the belt. As well as that, you have this holster to place the knife, and they added some additional paint apps here with the silver studs to show that it's holding the leather into place, which looks really nice. Then taking a look at the hands, there seems to be a lot more money being put into these sets as the hands are newly sculpted. One of them is closed to hold onto the dagger, and the other is open so you can pose the figure in many dynamic ways. The open hand shows off that amazing webbed feature, and it just looks fantastic. These are finished off in a glossy black paint, just like the eyes, to define all those little details, and it sets it apart from the rest of the body. I think the way of tones of blacks used on this figure is absolute genius, as it draws your eye to certain details, and it would rather look dull if the whole thing was just one shade of black. Speaking of other details, you also have some more silver studs added to this toy around the hips, and they're just two simple dots. And moving down to the legs, you also have some brand new feet, because the Voord wore these flippers within the episode. This means that both Voord have ankle articulation. I'm not sure if the sculpt has been adapted from the Axon Man figure, but it looks rather similar. But if we take a closer look, again, just like the head and the hands, the flippers have been painted in this gloss black, and again, just to differ them from the rest of the body. And there seems to be a lot of detail in here with all the ridges and buckles. oh, it's just so detailed. They do look ridiculous as they were back in the story. So there's obviously a lot more money being put into this set, as there's a lot of new sculpting in these new figures. For the triangular headed one, most of the details are exactly the same, apart from the antenna section, as well as some of the silver studs. Now, I don't know whether it was like that on the actual costume, but they seem to have done this so both of them don't look as identical to each other. There seems to be a silver stud between the collarbone and the Adam's apple, and he doesn't have the silver studs on the crotch piece. In terms of accessories, they both come with a dagger like they did in the episode, and they have just been simply painted silver with a little handle painted black. The knife itself fits snugly into its little sheath and can be removed without any difficulty. In order to get the knife into his hand, the best way to do it is if you go through the top if you want him to hold the knife downwards, and then vice versa if you do it the other way around. So for articulation, Ian has got a lot of standard articulation in all of the older figures. His head can move from side to side, but is hindered by the shirt. His arms can do a full 360. He also has bicep articulation, as well as bending at the elbow. And his hands can twist again, but are a bit loose. He also has articulation at the waist, as well as his legs that can move forward and out to the sides. And he can also bend at the knee. For the Voord, they have a bit more articulation, and again, the head can swivel and actually can do a full 360 turn. Same with the arms, they can do a 360 turn. As well as that, since they are on ball joints, you can move them out to the sides, swivel joints at the biceps and on the elbows, and again at the wrists. The waists can also move, and the legs can move forward and out to the sides. He also has articulation at the thighs, as well as the ankle, and he can also bend at the knee also. So to conclude this review, I am so happy that we've got these as toys now, as it was something that fans would dream about for years. A Keys of Marinus set, something that is now a reality. Not only do we get two iconic monsters from the 60s, but we also get an iconic companion of the 60s to go along with these figures. We've finally come full circle with these sets, and I believe things are only going to get better. You can probably hear how excited I am within my voice, as I am so pleased we are getting something new instead of just repeats of Daleks and Cybermen. And if you are wanting to get a hold of these sets, then I suggest searching at your local B&M to hunt these down. I can't believe we are so close to actually getting the first TARDIS team in figure form. I suppose by next year we could possibly be seeing a Companions of the First Doctor set to go along with Ian and the Doctor. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching my review, and happy hunting for all you fans out there. My next review will probably be on the Sensorite set, so stay tuned for that. And bye for now.